What is going on, baseball fans? Jeremy Laracuente here for the Baseball Banter Broadcast. And on this broadcast, we're going to be bantering about 23 storylines for the upcoming Major League Baseball season of 2023. But before we get into it, I want to hear from you guys. Let me know down in the comments what storylines in the 2023 Major League Baseball season are you most looking forward to? What ideas, concepts, things that are coming into play are you most interested in? Let me know that down in the comments, and we can keep the conversation rolling over on Twitter if you want to find me there at banter_baseball. But let's get into the list that I have here. We have a corresponding article up on laracuenteledger.com. Links to that article will be in the show notes below for kind of a little bit more into each and every one of these storylines that I personally will be trying to pay attention to this upcoming season. Now, as we begin, number one, and these are in honestly no particular order when we put the list together, but I'm going to be following the list that does correspond on the accompanying article. So first and foremost, Shohei Ohtani's upcoming free agency. It's going to be interesting to see kind of what happens with Shohei throughout the course of 2023, whether or not he's going to be traded, remains with the Angels, if he signs an extension, or if he actually reaches free agency and we see some kind of crazy, absolutely monstrous contract handed out to the two-way superstar. So it'll be very interesting to see kind of how that shakes out and how that plays out. Second thing is, we've heard different things, different rumors about the Baltimore Orioles potentially being sold. It'll be an interesting watch throughout the course of 2023 to see what happens with the Angelos family and whether or not they are going to be kind of inquiring about a way to move on from the team. So it'll be interesting to kind of keep an eye on that. The third storyline is who's going to be the next big name player to be traded. Obviously, Shohei Ohtani could potentially be moved if the Angels find themselves out of the running early on in the season and they want to get something back for him. Brian Reynolds, we've heard plenty of times right now, but is there going to be another star, another superstar player that gets moved throughout this 2023 season? Storyline number 4. Will the Angels be competitive this year? We know the final season of Shohei Ohtani, they have Mike Trout still under contract for a long time for a lot of money. The Angels right now, at the time of this recording, are spending the most of any team in the American League West. But as we know, just because you're spending the most doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be the most competitive team on the block. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Angels and whether or not they're going to be competitive. Storyline number 5 is Carlos Correa. When you look at the offseason that Carlos Correa had and what he's going to be capable of doing in this upcoming season with the Minnesota Twins to try to prove that he is healthy, to prove the Giants and the Mets wrong for kind of overlooking him, and just to try to solidify what he is capable of as one of the bright young superstars in Major League Baseball. Number 6 is how will Aaron Judge follow up the historic 2022 AL MVP winning campaign that he had? What is he going to do? Is there something more left in the tank? Are we going to see a regression? What actually happens in this upcoming follow-up season to that monstrous historic year from Aaron Judge? Number 7, this is a year in which we will see the World Baseball Classic. So who is going to win that tournament? Obviously, I've stated on our bold predictions video, if you've checked that out, that I do believe that Team Puerto Rico is going to be victorious. It's going to be an uphill battle. Obviously, a lot of strong teams, especially Team USA and Team Dominican Republic. But again, who is actually going to win that tournament is something that we'll have to pay attention to as a storyline this season. Number 8 is how much will Steve Cohen actually pay this coming season? With the way that everything is shaking out right now, he's at almost $500 million for the 2023 salary. Between the payrolls, the luxury tax penalties, all of that is nearing that mark. If the Mets make any sort of moves throughout the course of the season, we could see that number even higher. So very, very curious to see kind of what the final total for Steve Cohen's actual final payment for 2023 is going to be. Storyline number 9 on the list is, are the Texas Rangers for real? They've done a lot this offseason to completely revamp their starting rotation, coming off of, revamping their middle infield just a season ago. So the question really becomes is this a real team, a real threat, a contending team, or is this just all smoke and mirrors? And we're not going to actually see anything substantial coming out of Texas. Now, number 10 is who's going to be the next team to end their postseason drought. We would see the Mariners end a drought that was in place from 2001, just this past season. So who is the next team that is going to be able to do that? Storyline number 11 is we know that there's going to be several rule changes coming into effect in the upcoming 2023 season. And how exactly that plays out for Major League Baseball, for the players, how the teams are going to try to kind of circumvent the rules. We know that every time a new rule is put into place, teams immediately go in and try to figure out how to kind of manipulate that, to manipulate the rules to better serve themselves, to get an advantage, because that competitive advantage is where wins and losses can really come into big play. It may seem like something not as important. It's always said that you can't win the World Series in April, but you can definitely lose it. So being able to kind of figure out how these rule changes are going to be affected and what kind of ways to get around them is going to be something that I'll be interested to see how it goes. Now, with the new rule changes that are in place as storyline number 12, are the three true outcomes, walks, home runs, and strikeouts, are we going to see maybe a little bit of a regression in that era? We know that pitchers are constantly throwing harder and getting more strikeouts because of it. But now with less time to react, less time to kind of let your arm build back up, we see some of these hard throwing pitchers, especially relievers, taking 30, 35, 40 seconds sometimes even between each and every pitch just to kind of let their arm heal up a little bit. We're not going to have that opportunity now with the pitch clock coming into effect. We're also going to see that there's going to be base runners on, and their throwovers and pickoffs and all of these different little changes. Are they going to start affecting the three true outcomes? So I'll be interested to see exactly how that goes. Storyline number 13 is who will be the next breakout star. We would see tremendous seasons from some rookie players, Julio Rodriguez, Spencer Strider, Adley Rutschman, Michael Harris II, but who is going to be that next breakout superstar in 2023? Now, storyline number 14, we know that in AAA this upcoming year, the electronic strike zone is going to be put into play. So how this goes for the AAA season, the minor league season, is really going to have a direct and potentially permanent effect on the major leagues. So will we see robo-umps making it into Major League Baseball? We may have to wait towards the end of the year to find out about any potential changes that may be coming with the electronic strike zone. But to me, there is a definite possibility that we could see it, and it'll be something to pay attention to. Now, storyline number 15 on our list is, can the Houston Astros be stopped? I mean, when you look at the way that this team is built, they just lost the American League Cy Young Award winner and arguably are a better overall team. That's crazy to think, crazy to believe, but it very well can be the case. So is there going to be an entity that really truly is able to stop them in 2023? We'll have to wait and see. Now, storyline number 16 is, have the San Diego Padres done enough to dethrone the regular season Dodgers? Now, I make that distinction. I make that separation because, as we've seen, the Dodgers have been a powerhouse presence when it comes to the 162 game marathon that is the regular season. However, in the postseason, the Dodgers have not yet been the same team as we've seen throughout that course of that 162. But when it comes to the National League West, when it comes to the regular season, have the Padres done enough to not just shorten that gap, but overtaken the Dodgers? We haven't seen the Dodgers really do a whole lot this offseason. A lot of it is being speculated as they're waiting to kind of get to the market of next year when Shohei is a free agent. But the question is, the storyline that I'll be paying attention to coming out of the National League West is, are the Padres now the better team? Storyline number 17 is, will we start seeing stolen bases come back in a big way in 2023? Again, we spoke about the rule changes, throwovers, step-offs, pickoffs. They're all being limited, and we're also getting larger bases. So are we going to see more stolen base attempts, more stolen bases in 2023? I do believe that we will, but is it going to be a big enough change where it feels like a new game once again, a new old game really once again, as stolen bases were a very big part of the sport just a couple of decades ago. So it's going to be very interesting to see how much of a change these rule changes are going to be able to make in terms of the stolen base game. Now, storyline number 18 is, what is the next Moneyball? Now, we know that teams are always trying to find that competitive advantage. They're always trying to find a way to get the most out of their team, to manipulate the situation in the system, to be able to gain that maximum advantage, to give themselves those few extra wins that could be the determining factor between a wild card spot or no postseason at all, or even being the division winner or the best record. There's a lot that just figuring out that little bit of a statistical advantage, that little bit of a competitive advantage can make all the difference in the world. So what is going to be that next thing? With the rule changes, the limiting of the shifts, could it be range factor and having a player who has tremendous defensive range as opposed to a guy who may give you a little more offensively but cost you on the defensive side of things? Is it going to be a guy who has the tunneling between his fastball and breaking stuff where it looks exactly the same coming out of his hand and batters aren't able to determine what pitch he's actually being thrown? There's a number of things that it could be, a number of things that potentially we could see being that big new wave of statistical advantage in Major League Baseball. So one of the storylines that I will be paying attention to is, what is that new Moneyball? Now, storyline number 19 is, who is the real Fernando Tatis Jr.? Now, the player that we saw prior to his injury is a dynamic talent, one of the most interesting and entertaining players in Major League Baseball. The level of passion that this player displayed was second to none, really. And when we got the news last offseason about the motorcycle injuries that led to the wrist injury, this is now a player that we saw then get hit with a PED suspension. So now we really have to question, was anything that we witnessed from this player even real? We have to try to figure out who that player is going to be. The Padres have already kind of made a stance on it by moving him out of the shortstop position because of bringing in a guy like Xander Bogaerts and moving Fernando to the outfield. So what player are we actually going to see? Is this going to be a guy who, after missing an entire season, is going to be able to come back and still be that presence in the lineup? Is this going to be a guy who's going to be a problematic presence in the clubhouse? Who is the real Fernando Tatis Jr.? And that's going to be something to pay attention to in 2023. Now, storyline number 20 is a more problematic situation for Major League Baseball to try to figure out. The Oakland A's and the Tampa Bay Rays are having ridiculous stadium issues. They have arguably the worst stadiums in Major League Baseball, and there really is what feels like no hope on the horizon for these two franchises. In the recent years, both of these teams have been very competitive postseason presences, but cannot draw. And a lot of it, in my opinion, has to do with the stadiums, where they're located, and just how poor those stadiums are at this point. Whether or not they are able to figure out new stadiums, being able to kind of figure out whether funding or any other situation that in to try to better these franchises that, again, within the last decade have been competitive teams and now are in a position where they're unable to draw, they're unable to retain fans, and it's actually not a very good situation for Major League Baseball at all. So figuring out what these stadium issues can and can't be, or whether or not they can or can't be solved, is going to be something to pay attention to this coming season. Now, the next storyline is whether or not MLB will expand and to where. We had an article on laracuenteledger.com as well as a corresponding video here on the Baseball Banter broadcast about the 5 potential cities for expansion, potential relocation for Major League Baseball. I will leave links to that article and that video down in the show notes below. But whether or not we see some more kind of concrete conversation about expansion is going to be something to pay attention to. We know that there is a contingent being led by Dave Stewart, former pitcher for the Oakland A's, in terms of trying to expand and create a major league team in Nashville, Tennessee. So it'll be interesting to see if we see any more news regarding another potential location or even more from the Nashville contingent. So it'll be something to pay attention to. Now, storyline number 22. The article is already out, so it's going to be something that I'm going to add on as I'm recording this. But what will happen with Trevor Bauer, and we can add Mike Clevenger into that mix. I think that both players' situation is now known at this point, and it isn't something that we're going to get too deep into. But Major League Baseball is going to be having to figure out something in dealing with these situations and these issues as they arise, and how the Players Association and Major League Baseball will handle situations like these is going to be something to pay attention to, because I think that it's important for the Players Association for Major League Baseball to kind of make a stand and say that this isn't okay behavior. So that'll definitely be something to watch as the year unfolds. And we're going to wrap up with the 23rd and final one. And obviously, when it comes to baseball, specifically, it is the most important: who's going to win the World Series. Now, obviously, fans of all teams will more than likely claim their own, but the ongoing question, which is why we play the 162-game marathon, it's why we have the kind of wild shootout tournament that is our postseason. It's all about winning the World Series. And regardless of how poorly said Rob Manfred has been about it, it is more than just a piece of hardware, a piece of tin. Playing for a World Series championship is what you go out there, what you work so hard for as a baseball player for, is to win the World Series. So lastly and finally, the storyline that I'll be paying the most attention to this season is who will win the 2023 World Series. But again, let me know, as I said at the top of the order, let me know your thoughts, your storylines that you're paying attention to throughout this 2023 season. You can do it down in the comments below, or you can find me over on Twitter at banter_baseball, where we can keep the conversation rolling. If you want to show more support for us here at the Baseball Banter broadcast, you can hit the subscribe button and the bell for post notifications so that each and every time we drop a new broadcast here on the Baseball Banter broadcast, you can be notified. You can also follow us over on our website at laracuenteledger.com, and we put up new articles daily on the world of Major League Baseball, as well as many other things, many other topics. So make sure you check that out as well if you want to show more support. If you want to show even more support, head over to baseballbanterbroadcast.com, our merchandise shop, and you can use any one of the number of promo codes we have on the site to purchase some Baseball Banter broadcast merchandise. As always, keep it locked in to the Baseball Banter broadcast as we continue to try to grow this baseball community. 95% of my viewers here on this channel are not subscribed. So if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button, as it does a huge service as we continue to try to build this baseball family here. So keep it locked in for the next broadcast as I cover the latest news, notes, or my personal thoughts, theories, and opinions on the game of Major League Baseball. Peace.